So do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, we've got one there. Hang on, there's a microphone coming.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for the presentation. In these weeks in the press, there's been lots of talking about concrete and sort of impact on the environment. Because at the moment, I have a big project on concrete because that's what the client wants. In the past, I used concrete because I like it. But, you know, I care about the environment. So where is the truth? What can be said overall?
Who's going to start?
Switch it on. Okay. I've cancelled my Guardian subscription. One of the answers is where is it? There wasn't much in those articles about UK concrete. And that makes a difference because concrete is made from local materials and it doesn't travel very far. And so actually what didn't come across in those is that actually if you're specifying concrete, particularly in the UK, but also this it can apply elsewhere as well, the carbon footprint of concrete is down a third from what it was a couple of decades ago. You can also use different types of cements to lower the carbon footprint of concrete. None of that came out. The responsible sourcing. Concrete is 90%, practically all concrete in the UK is responsibly sourced to the highest standard. You know where it's coming from, you can trace it, you know it's been ethically sourced, you know there's no slavery, the whole thing is monitored right the way through. So it depends on what your measure of sustainability is. If you want to put recycled aggregates in there, you know there's limitations structurally, technically of course, but you can do it. If you want to do it, it's well regulated. You know, we don't have shortages of sand in the UK. It's very well regulated. You do not believe how frustrating those. You know, we were having a little discussion about this earlier about sloppy journalism and how much can we believe now has tainted my view about what I can read. Because I read through all of those and I went through, and we all did through the industry and went, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? So, for example, there was something about the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that the UK concrete produces, being stated as 6%. It's 1.47%. UK cement has been decarbonising faster than the UK since 1990. I'm so disappointed because you want to, you know, it was very sensational. So the answer for me, the answer is absolutely yes, it can be. I would not be working in this industry if I did not believe that and know that and would ask all the questions about how it would be. So keep using, it can be sustainable. You can also get much more out of it. It can be almost as sustainable as you want to, and I'm going to hand over to somebody else to answer that question as well.
Rob.
Is that working?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously what Elaine's picked up on is comparing structure with different types of structure, but also with concrete you can get so many other benefits that we've touched upon in with RC Path of it really forming quite an important part of the M&E strategy and harnessing that thermal mass and having an impact on the operational carbon. So maybe from year one, concrete may be slightly higher than say a pure timber structure, but due to the mass of the material, if used correctly with nighttime purging, that kind of technique, by year say 12, we're certainly finding that calculations would suggest that the concrete is a long way ahead of some of the lighter weight buildings. So it's if you can find more reasons for using concrete other than just for holding the floors up, then that really helps reinforce the comments that Elaine was making. And the other thing, of course, is if you can also use it as a finishing material, you can strip all of the plasterboard away and the soffits and things like that. So you need a much more holistic look at it before you can sort of make these slightly rash comments that a paper I normally read very regularly, no surprise there from an architect, as stated.
Yeah, I think I'd add that actually if you read the articles carefully, there's a whole lot of reasons why people use concrete included within them. As well as the headlines, which were fairly dramatic, I think, as I'd put it. So, any other questions or issues that people want to raise? Sorry, I missed.
Hello. I do quite a lot of refurbishment jobs on existing buildings, and I was very interested in the thing about the post-tension slabs. Is it true there's not much you can do with a post-tension slab? You can't really work on a post-tension slab, like knock a hole in it, without causing mayhem and destruction, or?
You can demolish and you can refurbish post-tension slabs. It depends on what sort of post-tension you've got. So there are, I mentioned that there were two options, bonded and unbonded. With a bonded slab, bonded post-tension slab, you can do anything you can do with a reinforced concrete slab. You can do with a bonded post-tension slab. You might have to do some strengthening, but you might have to do some strengthening with a reinforced concrete slab. So, but with an unbonded post-tension slab, if you cut through one of the unbonded tendons, then you're releasing energy. You don't release energy if you're doing it on a bonded one, because basically the tendon is bonded to the concrete, so it doesn't move. Whereas with an unbonded tendon, it can move. And the thing has always been, it becomes a missile, it becomes a bomb. You know, you cut through it, it'll go ping, and terrible things will happen. That doesn't happen. There is enough damping in the system that it actually, it'll move, but it won't move too much. So you do need to be more careful with doing modifications to an unbonded post-tension slab, as you do with a bonded or an RC slab. But there are plenty of ways to do it, and there are plenty of people who know how to do it. So it's just a matter of knowing whether you've got an unbonded or a bonded slab, and then getting the right person involved.
Jenny,
so it's quite easy.
Can I ask, how do you know? How do you find out?
Well, that's a very good question. If it's a bonded slab, you will see if you can get to the end, you will see what looks like a little letterbox in a different. Basically, because bonded comes in it has ducts, so you get about 3 or 4 or 5 tendons in one space, and therefore they come out, and it's a little box area. So you get a sort of what looks like about the size of a letterbox, and you'll see it as a different colour, because instead of being concrete, it's actually a dry mortar mix is in there. So if you can look at it on the outside, if you look at it on the outside, you can see that it's a bonded rather than an unbonded tendon. Other than that, you're looking at seeing whether you've got any information about the project.
Sorry, in future you'll get a microchip in your slab which will tell you.
Jenny, am I right in thinking that there's many more of the bonded slabs, though? Is that right? And you usually tell by age, because we don't tend to do the unbonded quite so much, do we?
It's about 90%, possibly even 95% is bonded in this country now. So if it's older, it might be unbonded. If it's newer, it's almost certainly bonded.
That's a good question, though, because that's a real common misconception. Yeah.
We've got 5 minutes, and unusually we've managed to fill most of the spare time we produced because our speakers were so well and timely. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to thank the audience for... Oh, we got one. Sorry.
Hello. It was about the Bennetts Associates building. I missed, you said it quite quickly, and I missed what you said about the additional cooling element in the soffits.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. So generally throughout the building, the coffers are left open. We just have a light fitting within those. But there are a couple of key spaces, the 200-seat auditorium and a couple of the other conference spaces, where because you have a large volume of people arriving in that space in one go, the thermal mass of the concrete, if just left on its own, isn't quick enough to respond to that number of people arriving. So in those spaces, we've introduced a suspended passive chilled beam. So it's like a radiator with cold water that's being run through it within the coffer. Now, there are a lot of projects where there's pipe work incorporated within the concrete. But we actually chose to incorporate it as a hung item within the coffer, purely for the kind of future flexibility, so that if that space changes, they can take that out. It's a sort of plug and play system, so they've got the flexibility to move that space around in the future. Another quite kind of interesting element that came out of that process is actually the shape of the coffer helps with the efficiency of the performance of that chilled beam, because it's creating a kind of convection current naturally around it, compared to if you were putting a chilled beam under a flat slab.